Alright, in this section, we're now going to have a look at CDN, also known as Content Delivery Network. And it helps to think about how users interact with content around the web so we can understand how the CDN fits in. So to begin with, let's think about it as if we have a source of data. Maybe this is like a web application and people are going to a website and retrieving a bunch of images. Typically, in the case of our user here, Theodore, he would go ahead and make the request to the source, the origin, and the origin would serve up the content. Now, the problem here is that if people are across the globe, let's say we have people in the UK, Australia, South Africa, etc., we don't necessarily want them always coming back to the US to get their images and various pieces of content. So the answer to that is to use a CDN. And what we do is we put in an edge in between the source and the user. So Theodore, for example, the first time he goes to access the content, we'll try to retrieve it from the CDN. Now, the CDN doesn't have the content yet. So the edge will go ahead to the source, grab the content, cache it in the edge, and then serve it up to Theodore. Now, his current experience, if he was in, say, one of those regions across the globe, wouldn't be any better at this point. However, the next set of users that go ahead and request the content, they go to the edge, request the content, and it's served up directly from the edge. So there's multiple points of presence across the globe where this content is cached and is available to users across the globe, so they get a much, much better latency response time when they're serving up the content. Now, in Azure, you have three major offerings that you can utilize in order to take advantage of CDN. There's standard Akamai, and I'll get into some of the features of these in a moment. There's standard Verizon, and there's premium Verizon as well. And it does help to go ahead and check out this link here because there's a huge table just of all the different features available in each of them, and we'll sort of head over there in a second and kind of cover some of them. At a high level though, when you look at the offerings in the portal, you'll notice a few things that really kind of stand out as differentiating between the different services. In particular, if we look at Akamai versus Verizon, what you'll notice in Akamai is they put a lot of emphasis on this media optimization. So let's go ahead actually and switch over to the website and take a look at the table there. And here we are, as you can see on the web page, if you scroll down to the features section, you'll see this here. It specifically mentions dynamic site acceleration, adaptive image compression, dynamic site acceleration, object prefetch. Those are features that are only available in standard Akamai. And so you may be wondering what those are. So if we look at dynamic site acceleration, adaptive image compression, think of this like, most websites consist of an HTML page, which, you load it, and then it goes out and requests all of the images. So what prefetch does is it actually, retrieves the images of scripts embedded in the HTML page while the HTML is served from the browser, even before the browser requests the object. So think of it like you may go to your favorite web page and you sign on, but immediately it's already grabbing the images while the HTML is still rendering in your page. And then the other big one here, around adaptive image compression, some devices, if you think about it, especially mobile ones, experience like slower network speeds from time to time. I know this happens to me all the time when I'm on the train, on the way to Chicago, and the network speeds kind of come and go. And in these scenarios, it's beneficial for the user to receive smaller images more quickly rather than waiting for the full resolution images to come down. So this is a great feature. If you go to a web page that supports this via a CDN, rather than you sitting there waiting for the images to load up, it's going to serve up smaller versions of those. Now, they may not look, they're not going to be as high quality, but you'll get them more frequently. The other big one is, around video. The request patterns of streaming have a lot of challenges. When you think of a popular live stream of a new series or a new video on demand that gets released, thousands and thousands of viewers might request to stream at the same time. And in this case, you need some smart, technology to really deal with that. And so the technology from Akamai, has a feature that delivers streaming media assets efficiently to users across the globe at scale. And this reduces latencies because it reduces the load on the origin servers. So if you think about your origin server having to kind of deal with all of this, you don't have to worry about that because that's offloaded to the Akamai engine that's basically taking care of that for you. If we shift down to some of the features that are kind of unique to Verizon, if you scroll right down to the bottom, one in particular, aside from some of the management and ease of use things, is this ability to use a rules engine, URL redirect, rewrite mobile device rules. This is something that's unique to the Verizon offering as well. And this allows you to customize how HTTP requests are handled. So for example, you can block certain types of content, define your own caching policy, modify HTTP headers. Those are things that are unique to the Verizon premium offering in particular. So when you look at these, and we'll go through in the demonstration how to kind of create a CDN endpoint in a moment, but just as you look at these, the two things to stand out for the exam are, okay, if it's optimized for media, I probably should be looking at the Akamai engine. And if I need something more around rules and redirection and blocking content, etc., Verizon just has a lot more features in that area.